So we'll begin. Dr. Eoin O'Dell, as I mentioned, is part of the law school here at TCD, and aside from lecturing, he's also been on a number of committees advising the Irish government and the EU on topics such as private law, defamation, copyright, statute law reform. Would you please welcome Eoin O'Dell?
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Sinead, I think, for the introduction. We'll see, or for the invitation. We'll see later whether that was a good thing or not. Great, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to talk briefly about the intersection of the internet and privacy and some legal consequences that flow from that intersection. Or actually, there isn't an intersection, and that's the problem. The internet doesn't, by default, respect or even reflect or even respond to privacy. We are told that privacy is dead, and we are told that social media, Sinead, is the smoking gun. 1999, Scott McNeely, then of Sun, told us, you have zero privacy, get over it. And Google, in their presentation to a hearing before the Federal Trade Commission late last year, said that there is no putting the genie back in the bottle. Everyone will expect to be tracked and monitored, since the advantages in terms of convenience, safety and services will be so great, continuous monitoring will be the norm. At the end of last year, the CSO told us that 8 out of 10 households have internet access, and that number is only going to grow. It's the same percentage as the number of people Accenture tell us believe that total privacy no longer exists. And that is because of the digital footprint that we leave behind as we go about our daily online lives. Now, Conor is going to talk in more detail about the practicalities of your digital footprint. I'm going to be a little less specific. But what happens in 5 seconds on the internet? 28,500 Twitter accounts created. 11,570 hours of video on YouTube are watched. 23,000 Google searches. 115,000 minutes of Skype are used. 1.7 million emails are sent. And that's in 5 seconds. Scale the numbers up. Think about the amount of data that is following from that. There's the data we know we're giving away when we fill in online forms. Whether we're filling in the online form because we want to join a social media platform, or whether we're filling in the online form because we want to engage with some kind of state service. It isn't always the case, though, that we know what's going to happen with the data afterwards. In 2011, Children's Hospital got into trouble with the Data Protection Commissioner because they were keeping the heel prick test results and continuing to use the blood for further research long after the test results had come back and without the consent of the parents of the children involved. Early last summer, we discovered that the Irish genealogy website, based on genealogical data, which had been presented to and produced by state bodies, was revealing all sorts of personal information, like mother's maiden name. And those of you who have filled in a website that asks as a secret security question, what's your mother's maiden name? Well, if there is this public site out there that tells any hacker what your mother's maiden name is, then you know you've got a potential data problem. The state at this point should begin to see a pattern, but it didn't. There's Irish Water. And we know that during the summer they got into trouble over unnecessarily asking for PPS numbers, not only of the account holder, but of everybody else connected with the household as well. The Data Protection Commissioner looked at it, and on the day the Data Protection Commissioner said she was going to look at it, Irish Water had a data breach. Now, not PPS number breaches, but still it raised questions about the safety and security of their data, and gave the lie to their statements that all our data will be properly protected when they then sent lots of stuff to the wrong customers and so on. And they eventually decided they weren't going to need the PPS numbers after all. Maybe we should have learned from that, but we didn't. This is from today's Irish Times. Data concerns remain over postcodes and primary schools. There are two big data stories ongoing vis-a-vis the state at the moment, where the Data Protection Commissioner has raised concerns about the proposals relating to a database of primary students and the postcode database. So this is all information that we are giving away, and there are all sorts of questions around the information that we are giving away, and this is information we know we're giving away. What about the information we don't know we're giving away, but is given away anyway? Your phone knows everything. If you lose your phone, you lose your life. If your phone is hacked, your life is hacked. The location information on your phone, the sensor information on your phone, and where it's going. I mean, we have the selfies. Okay, lots and lots of photographs on your phone. You save them to the cloud. We've got, how many of you spotted the QR code in college and actually engaged with it? Okay, nobody in this room. That's a pity. I was kind of hoping that there'd be at least one. Okay, somebody spotted it, somebody saw it on Twitter, nobody engaged with it. That's fine. Jessica will tell you what you're all missing in a little while. So this is, hold your souls in patience for a minute. The photographs that we give away to iCloud, easily hacked. And we need to be aware of that when we give this information away. Okay, Sinead, IBM can decipher your personality from how many tweets? IBM say they can work out your personality from 200 tweets. Given that I've got about 30,000 tweets between my two accounts, there's a lot that IBM can work out. I'm always grumpy and I'm always in need of coffee. Worse than that, Facebook has demonstrated that it can manipulate your mood on the basis of the data that it serves you. All of the apps that you have on your phone or on your computer are always talking to the mothership. One app, according to a survey in July, an average online app is connecting with 18 third parties, giving your data to some of them. So you're giving your health data to Apple. Maybe Apple aren't selling it to 18 people, but they want the data because it's commercially helpful. It's commercially helpful to them, and it's commercially helpful to sell on to third parties. Photographs. First of all, the location information on your photographs. Be careful when you take your photographs. The location information can be, in this case, very serious indeed. I recently upgraded the firmware on my phone, and it asked me 4 times if I wanted to turn location services on. 4 times I said no. It kept wanting me, are you sure? Are you really sure? Are you really, really, really sure? Yes, I'm sure. No, I don't want. More than that, the photographs can, because of the amount of metadata that they contain, be traced back to the actual device that they were taken on. Not just the location, the device. It's not just your cameras or your phones, it's your e-books, it's your televisions, smart TVs always online, the Xbox potentially always online and with a camera built in tracking what you're doing. Okay, I know that Google are phasing out the current Google Glass, but something like that will continue. Cars are increasingly connected. The projection is that there will be 60,000 cars on American roads in 2018, where it's not just the parking and so on sensors, but it's the entertainment and social media always-on connections as well. And now Electric Ireland and Google have got the Google Nest that's going to give all sorts of information about your home to Google, not just the smart fridges that we're all told will be, the be-all and end-all of our existence in civilization, but smart dustbins. In fact, some of you probably walked past one. That's in college. This is a dustbin that tells our sensors, it's got sensors in it, it tells our supervisors when it's full, it needs to be emptied. But the smart dustbin on the left can do an awful lot more than that. You can actually scan the barcode of the items that you're dumping as you dump it, so it knows what's in there. This is the Internet of Things. This is the always on, everything connected. And if you've got 80% of households online, then always on, always connected, broadcasting to the world, the Internet of Things. There will be 50 billion Internet connected devices in the Western world by 2020. The amount of data in that expansion is mind-blowing and staggering. It is 40 times what we currently have. What's the consequence of that? Well, at the moment on the internet, at the moment on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. That's no longer true. You're leaving so much information in all of these ways that so much can be derived about you that now on the internet we know that one's a white black spotted beagle mix, the other is a brown lab, and the NSA suspects that they're humping. Okay, all this data, it's all being collected. Why? Data is the new oil, we are told, and we need to do with the data what we would do with the oil. We need to extract it and refine it and monetize it. I mentioned earlier about health data on your health data devices, your Fitbit, your Jawbone Up, or whatever. Well, Fitbit was selling its data without selling the data of its users, without telling the users that that's what they were doing. That was very naughty. They have now said they're going to stop, but the fact that they were doing it demonstrates just the value of the data to them and why they, what an important part of their business model data is. Another story from one of today's newspapers, just to illustrate what can happen when the data is sold. This is a company called Taylor & Son. It is registered in Companies House in the UK as having gone into liquidation, but Companies House in the UK published that Taylor & Sons had gone into liquidation. They discovered their mistake 3 days later, but by that stage it was too late because they had sold that data on to the credit agencies and it had destroyed their credit rating with their customers. The company then had to go into liquidation because of the mistake made by the Companies House in curating the data and in selling the data on. If data is the new oil, the one thing that was missing from the list was the need to protect it. We don't want this kind of thing happening. This is the BP fire in the Gulf, the Gulf of Florida. We need to protect the data as well. If data is the new oil, then privacy is the new green, and this is where the law comes in. Because the law is one of the ways that we can use to protect our privacy. Ireland increasingly is not just home to social media, it is home to big data. And there are lots of research, in particular university-based research groups around big data, one of which has said that Ireland must ensure that the data, all of the data we are getting, is used responsibly. The data protection regulation, which Gina is going to talk about, will tell us in future how we are going to use our data responsibly. But it's important that we all do, because the internet never forgets. Unless you, especially if you are a Spanish lawyer called Mario Costella Gonzalez, who in a newspaper published in Spain in 1998, his money troubles were noted, but he had solved those money troubles and had gone on to a successful career as a Spanish lawyer. This is Mr. Gonzalez. And he didn't like the fact that Google still served up as one of its early searches this news article about his money troubles. So he sued in Spain against the Spanish Data Protection Commissioner, and the Spanish court referred to the Court of Justice, and the Court of Justice said that for reasons of European law, there is a general right to be forgotten, which is an outgrowth or an implementation of the right to privacy, which is available against search engines. The search engine, if you tell the search engine, please don't serve this up, and you've got a good reason for doing so, the search engine has to delink that item from the search and therefore not return it in the search. It's not deleting the actual original story, which is what Grazia thought. You know, this wonderful legal journal of choice for lawyers. Grazia, they thought it was getting rid of the information completely. It's a delinking. It is not, as Jimmy Wales told us, a new inquisition, a new index. It doesn't involve deletion, it doesn't contradict freedom of expression, but it does give individuals a right to have a search removed under European data protection law for reasons of privacy. And Google has been very open about the way in which its Right to be Forgotten's program works. We've also got to be aware of the fact that we can too easily fall victim to scams. Don't give your credit card information out. If you do, you're going to be part of the 400 million lost to the economy in 2013. One example, Loyalty Build, October 2013, they had a data breach that involved 1.5 million Europeans, including 376,000 items of credit card data. They're based in Clare, in Ennis. And they reopened the following March after a Data Protection Commissioner investigation and 500,000 invested in security. And probably, although they were coy in the interview this month, probably about another 1.5 million in losses in terms of lost revenue. The state, this is the state looking at us in our bedroom. I'm not going to say too much about it, but state surveillance against privacy is just as pervasive as company surveillance. This is what the state is doing. It's removing our privacy in the name of security. In 1961, almost to the day, Eisenhower warned against the military-industrial complex. In the context of surveillance, it's really a security corporate complex. And we have a word for what happens on the security side. When the state becomes evil, we call it dystopia. But what do we call it when a company goes beyond its role in terms of data aggregation and data control and data sales and so on? It's the sort of stuff that features in a not very good novel that I had inflicted on me during the summer, The Circle by Dave Eggers. But it's got a couple of interesting points in it. All that happens must be known was the unofficial motto of the company. It argued that secrets are lies, sharing is caring, and privacy is theft. That's a bit Orwellian and frightening. But Orwell was writing about a state, and the kind of state that Orwell was talking about, in contradistinction to a utopia, we can call a dystopia. What Eggers is writing about is not a frightening state, but a frightening company. And we don't have a word for that. In the military-industrial complex, on the military side, on the state surveillance side, we've got dystopia. I think we need a word for a frightening company. And I'm going to propose it here tonight as an interesting takeaway. I think that from the same kind of source, if we want to talk about an evil company, we should call it a dysauguria. So from dystopia to dysauguria, a dysagurian state, sorry, a dysagurian company. Finally, last point. I've been talking about the challenges to privacy, the fact that the law gives us some supports, but we've got to be aware of it. This is the outgoing Data Protection Commissioner. He said privacy isn't dead, it just needs nurturing. So not only should the law be involved, but we should all be involved in the nurturing of privacy. In the balance of privacy versus convenience, the quote from Google with which I started, maybe we need to stop thinking about convenience and start thinking about personal privacy. There are lots of ways of protecting privacy online, from avoiding apps that leak your information and having better passwords than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is still the most common password, to deciding on Facebook who's going to know that you're a dog. Tim Berners-Lee, one of the inventors of the internet, he said we need to go further. We need a global Magna Carta to state our our personal rights. Unless we are careful in the future, it will be a case of everybody will always be on and will only be private for 15 minutes. We need to guard against that. Happy, not only Data Privacy Day, but International Lego Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Eoin. And Eoin actually mentioned the QR code, which was over the Nassau Street entrance of the college yesterday. And the brilliant team that you guys have here at Trinity did a bit of an experiment. So a number of people actually scanned the code and followed through to a number of forms. So no data was actually stored in this experiment. It was just counted to how many pages they went through. So over 100 people scanned the QR code, and from that, 90% of people gave away information, not knowing what it was for, gave away information such as their name, their date of birth, their address, but nearly 30% gave away details like credit card information, which to me is just baffling. How many of you here, if I asked you for your credit card details and the little 3-number pin on the back, would give it to me? not many, I would assume. So it's just interesting how if there's a form, we almost feel compelled to fill it in. Owen, before we move on to our next speaker, I suppose you made the point there of the terms and conditions with the apps and stuff like that. My question is there a fear that we become too stringent and too cautious with that sort of information? Does it really matter, in your opinion?
Well, if 200 tweets are enough to make an important determination about your personality, there are studies that show that it only takes 4 or 5 pieces of information that is public to break anonymized information. So the more information you give away, the more that can be derived about you. The does it really matter is basically that if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear. And your question earlier, you know, it was baffling to you that somebody gave away their credit card information. Yeah. There's an awful lot of information that is very private that you really wouldn't want other people to know, and you don't want people to be able to work that out. So the more you give away, the easier it is for the private stuff to be worked out. The less you give away, the more you can control you know, what other people know, and I think that's an important thing, that level of control that you get to decide, and not Disagurian companies. There we go, first use in the wild of this new
There
word.
we go. Congratulations. All right. Yeah, the solicitor here is trying to urge him to trademark it straight away. And before we go to that, just a reminder that you can tweet your questions and your comments to us. We have hashtag TCDprivacy on the go, and I can throw questions to our panel. They might not answer them, but I'll throw them to them anyway.